Hey, everybody. Welcome to Non-Perishable Goods Podcast. And today, this is a show that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. And I think that it's going to, we just need to figure out like what's going on in our communities. Like, Alec, have you noticed, what do you think? Like, have you noticed more crime or have you
More,
heard
more,
stories?
I guess it's more crime awareness, right? It's starting to hit home a little bit more. Um, I think from the time of 2008 till now, things have been pretty on the downslope, I would say. And that was due in part to the housing market. I was a part of that, very entrenched in it as a mortgage broker and a loan officer during that time frame. And when the market initially was high, you saw a lot of people in the Bay Area. And I'm not blaming the Bay Area. Let me preface that first. Right? It's just, but you saw a lot of people that sold their homes in the Bay Area, moved to Elk Grove, moved to Folsom, moved to Sacramento metropolitan areas. And I believe that there was a big spike in within those years from '08 to now. And I think it's become more prevalent now out of COVID, right? Like as soon as we got out of COVID, it's kind of felt like the wild, wild west, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does because I spend a lot of time in the Bay Area. A lot of my family's still out there. And I remember I was just riding, driving in the streets and cars were not like obeying laws. They were just going through red lights. They were going through stop signs. I was recently out there and, you would see cars just on the side of the road, just burnt up. Somebody had busted out my car window. Like
Wow.
that's actually happened to me. And a lot of people in my family. I would say maybe like pre-pandemic, it wasn't so bad, but after and during the pandemic, it's gotten pretty bad, you
And
know?
I think last like 6 to 8 months, we've been more privy to it, obviously through our algorithm on IG and then just the news and certain things like that. And I've noticed a significant difference. I spend some time in the Bay Area quite often, obviously due in part to my profession in baseball and things like that. And so there's
Mhm.
certain I just completely stay away from. I think this summer I went to a Giants game, and I hadn't been in that stadium in about 2 or 3 years. Just I'm not a Giants fan, but nice stadium. Used to have really good ambiance. You can go across the street to can't remember that name of that bar, but you go to the bar, you grab something to eat, you grab a drink, and then you just walk over across the street to the game and enjoy a game, and then you get back into your whip or you take Bart, wherever you had parked and go from there. But I think what I've seen, at least driving through Oakland, driving through San Francisco, different things like that, I just look at it and it's just not the same, right? Like my grandmother lived in the Bay Area, so like I always looked at it kind of like I know they call Seattle an Emerald City, the Emerald City. I always looked at San Francisco that way because I was very entrenched, with where she lived, on Minsonic and had multiple properties, and we always spent a lot of time in Golden Gate Park, and
Beautiful part. Mhm.
and you would see the diversity and the culture. Like you would take day trips there to go shop and do different things, and I just right now I have no want or desire to go and do that. Even here, like I don't frequent the mall. I don't frequent things unless I have to go.
Yeah.
Most of my spending is done online. Via different websites or apps. And I just, and it's funny because once you're, kind of my age or our age, right? Like we kind of know what we like, we kind of know what we want. So we're not out here, like per se, like functioning. We're not out in these streets. We're not really entrenched in the nightlife as much as we used to be in our late 20s and early 30s, things like that. So like I do see a difference though. I see a difference with the kids and my players that are in my program. I see a difference, and because it depends on who they're around. Like if they're not
Right.
around athletes or student athletes, I've seen kids go left, and the kids that are hanging with athletes or student athletes are kids that value their
Yeah,
extracurriculars and their studies. They usually stay on point, but I've watched a lot of kids go by the wayside, just due in part to their environment, and it's pretty prevalent right now. It's
yeah.
scary.
Yeah, no, it's scary. Like you were saying, like whatever your algorithm is feeding you or the media, the news media, it's showing, you're seeing the bipping, you're seeing people running into malls and, stealing from jewelry stores and it's like happening. So people don't really want to be out there. People don't want to be out there anymore.
Corporations and big time chains, right? In and out, Starbucks, Lululemon, Macy's, a lot of big time Nordstroms. You have a lot of time retailers who are just saying we're out.
Yeah. And the big thing is that it's happening all over the nation. Like a
Yeah.
lot of Republicans and are saying that this is happening in, the blue states because they're soft on crime and that, they're basically just allowing there's no law and order. But the truth of the matter, which I find very interesting because I like to know what's really happening, and based on a lot of stats, like FBI stats, that violent crimes have risen across the entire nation.
Mhm.
So if, California is soft on crime, well, if Texas or Florida or whatever, Arkansas, red states, if they're not tough on crime, or if they are tough on crime, then why are we seeing, rises in violent crimes all over the nation?
Mhm.
And I think that comes to, just everything that we've experienced the last few years
I
with,
think there's a hodgepodge of lack their trust within our democracy, right? There's a lack of truth. There's a lack of uh, and I guess this goes back to how we were taught in our grade school era, in our middle school and high school, and even secondary education, that a lot of these political offices were deemed you had to be at the top of your class, you had to be summa cum laude, and you had to have really good affiliations with the right people. I feel like it's all derived from the top, and what you're seeing at the bottom end of it is you're seeing just the fallout of not being at a united front, right? And so when the almighty dollar, and it's biblical obviously, but when the almighty dollar is the only thing that is kind of holding us together, you are going to have a natural divide, and then you're going to have people who have within and people who have not, right? And I don't think a lot of people ever really view, and this comes from an economical standpoint or background of mine, is like we live in a social caste system in the United States. Like, and I've had this conversation kind of ad nauseum with my inner circle and tried to explain what I see socioeconomically just in my profession, right? And where Major League Baseball always is trying to fight the good fight and bringing African American males back to baseball. And the problem is that baseball's overpriced, and it prices kids that are in general regions like a South Sacramento, for instance, where the median income is less than 27.5 thousand a year
Whew,
in a four household. That's very much below the poverty line, especially living in a state like California where taxes and real estate are
cost of
on
living
the
is going
drop.
up. Hmm.
Yeah, and shit, I just went grocery shopping, and it's no less than $205 every time I
Yeah.
and
So
shopping for one. That's just my basic essentials, right? Like just making sure I'm eating correctly and I have the right food and nutrients and a good diet, right? It is costing me about every 10 days about $205, right?
yeah.
And so sustainability of where we're at, I just don't see it, right? I don't see it working out the way that we're being fed it's to work out. Um, I think
Because it's
crime,
not.
well, because crime's always been crime, right?
Right.
Let's be real about that. And when I double back or go back on the social caste system thing is that, in the United States, Like, you and I can be born poor and die wealthy. It's different in other countries. A lot of other countries, you have that caste system where if your dad was a carpenter, you're a carpenter. If your parents were software engineers, you're going to be a software engineer. And that's kind of where you stay put. Now, things are obviously a lot looser than what they used to be. Like when we were in school with all the kids and social media and the power of the internet
Mhm.
has opened that up, right? But, because we have this more, and I've always said this is a problem, is racism is a problem, but classism is also a big problem, and I think they go hand in hand. And
Huge.
so
Mhm.
when you have a set of classes, and there's too many people that aren't of middle class, right? They're more below middle class when you think about their overall dynamic and where they live and what they bring in. There's too many people that feel like they have nothing, and I
Yeah.
think that the result of that is revolt in a negative way, and it's sad, right? Like,
Yeah, it's causing the crime increases because if you don't have money to buy groceries, if you don't have money to live in a neighborhood that's, or just having a home, like that's
a
people are
home.
being,
I mean, like, my new facilities in basically like sandwiched between Arden and Del Paso Heights, and we have a homeless problem right there on the street that my new facility's on, and it's
yeah,
a
yeah, I just think people give up. Like, but you don't have opportunities. You're not given the same opportunities. You're not giving structure, or you just don't have structure in your life. You see all the ills of the world, and you see how, government treats you, or different systems treat you, or just how family treats you. Like you just feel like people don't care about you. If you see, injustice happen and people are talking about it and people are getting away with it and people are gaslighting you about it, you just kind of lose hope. So I think that's
I think that the hardest thing I think about losing hope is I have two young men in this world, a 22 and a 20-year-old, and I feel some type of way in a sense where it's like I don't know if I'm going to be able to let them, or they are going to be able to experience some of the things that I was able to experience. Home ownership, ability to have financial and economical freedom. You know that kind of stuff. I just think like from a parental standpoint, right? Because I can see it in different lenses. I see it from I'm a black male 43, um and I see it from that lens. I see it from a parental lens. I see it from a business ownership lens. I see it from a coaching perspective lens. Like there's just a lot, and it's one of those. I feel like I have to cross linear with all of my athletes, right? My student athletes. I have to continue to hit on the fact that I just need you guys to be good characters.
Mhm. Yeah,
You know,
but as a parent, like you can't feel bad that you may or the kids may not have the same opportunities that we had growing up
Mhm.
or our parents had, because the way that society is going, they kind of taken all that away from us. The American dream isn't necessarily working out the same way. I mean, yes, you can, work and grow and change
That'd be a whole
your
nother topic.
position in the
So,
world, but the cost of living is just not
well, what is
manageable
still
anymore.
America? Right, like and it's a difference of opinions, and we talked about it a little bit, pre-production last week, right?
But listen, like my parents, they bought a house for $27,000 in like the
Yeah,
70s.
my
And
parents
now it's, you know what I mean? So
5,088.
yeah, so it's not even our fault. Like that's what people need to understand. Like it's not really attainable anymore. But I think that gets to a lot of people, and it's just it's not realistic anymore. And it's not
Yeah,
our fault. And I don't care how many jobs you get, how much work you do, and most people aren't going to do that just based on people's motivations. And it's
I think
just
crime in a lot of which ways, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think crime. is a true result of the propaganda that we're constantly fed, right? So if you're constantly gaslighting somebody, they're going to lash out or react or act emotionally about their feeling of injustice, right? And so like there's so many different relevancies that come with crime. I think that we do live in more lawless times where, yeah, technology's up. You can detect if somebody did something really easily through DNA and video and technology and these types of things. But so then why aren't these people being locked up? Like we can solve murders in 2, 3 days as opposed to 2 or 3 years, and evidence is keen and all these other things. But like when they go in waves, like I think the most hurtful thing is watching a group of people. I don't care what race or creed they are, but when I watch a group of people walk into a store and just take things off of a a shelf or a rack, and it's like, dude, like what
It's crazy.
and decide that that's going to be your way of living, or that's what you were going to do today. That was on your list of things to do, was
Yeah,
going your local mall. Like
yeah.
I don't think that they have a fear in this new
Uh,
generation of
no.
tomorrow.
And especially if you know that you're not going to be prosecuted so heavily, if you know that the sentence is lenient, or better yet, forget all that. If you know there's no cops in the area to come and arrest you, because that's an issue that they're having right now in
And the
society is there's not enough police force. Like there's not enough law enforcement. Like there for what there's many reasons why, but
Mhm.
we just don't have, I mean, even every industry, we just do not have enough people wanting to work certain jobs anymore. And
Why would I'll play devil's advocate. Why would you have to when you can get on the internet and shake your ass or sell your feed or sell yourself, or you know just go to the gym every day, and now all of a sudden you're making 10 to 15, $20,000 just because you have a fat ass or you have a big biceps. So I think our core moral values have shrunken to a point of no return too,
yeah, because
where
think about it real quick. Back in the day, everybody was like, "Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a veterinarian." No, not today. Kids want to be influencers.
Mhm.
They want the easy route, but a lot of people also want the that work life balance. Like this generation is really big on that. So a lot of people just don't want to work. They don't want to work hard at all.
I talked about last night. It's process, right? Like sports are a process, and I think that that's what helps, and why a lot of people who do play sports or are involved in athletics or some sort of extracurricular activity tend to have a more, in my eyes, a successful existence, right, and a more successful lifestyle. As to, I do understand work balance, and I've taken that this year, taken a sabbatical from coaching at the high school or college level, and I found myself to being so much more just at ease with
Yeah.
my overall day, because I'm not feeling like I'm going, right?
You're more
Um,
productive when you get to
yeah,
rest.
but I'm not afraid of hard work, right? Like I enjoy work, and I think that that's also comes from within the home, and we can even delve into it even more. Maybe a few shows later, down the road, we can really kind of go into the iPad generation of these young men and women, right? And they have been
Yeah.
fed video games and iPad dreams of GTA, Fortnite, um, just the non-realities of the world. But it's been shoot 'em up, bang bang, right?
Yeah.
It's here's
And that's
something. Here's where all the crime's at. So go and participate at whatever it may be, whether it's a sideshow or whatever. I've never been a part of that part of our culture, right? And so it's like I can't really speak to it because I'm not there. But like I don't also want to be that old head that's pointing the finger and like you guys are the problem. It's like no, there's a bigger problem other than just you guys, and I
yeah.
think it starts at the top. I think just our overall political parties suck. You
Yeah.
know, I'm going to
Yeah,
be
because
that
if you
I
yeah,
said
like
about Paul. Go
yeah,
ahead.
because if you sorry, and I was like, it was like delaying a little. But if you Like if you see your leadership
Hmm.
doing corrupt things and be acting like children and just fighting, how that's going to influence our youth.
Hmm.
It just is, you know. And if kids don't have any type of, like we talked about this before, if they don't have a mentor, if they don't
Hmm.
have structure, if they don't have people just simply telling them, I care about you, I love you, I want to see you be successful, I want to help you, and just take time in helping them develop their passions. Because that's what I think baseball and, programs, like it makes sense why people keep kids in so many sports throughout the year.
Yeah,
Every season is a new sport
it's
because you need it.
negative too. I mean, you can look at it as like there's a lot of parents, and I'm not saying every parent, but there are a lot of times over the years, 15 years of doing this, there are parents that this is their daycare, right? This is their reprieve. This is their 2 to 4 hours on a day or on a Tuesday and a Thursday to get what they need to get done. They need to go to Target, they need to go to Costco, and they don't want to have two kids on latched onto them while they're trying to accomplish things for the household. And I just there is an overall fear where it's like, okay, things have become so much easier to buy and obtain, right? Like you have DoorDash, you have Instacart, you have online shops, you have apps, so you have all these things that are just clicks, clicks of a button, pick what you want, here it is, deliver it. I'm guilty of it. Like I'm guilty of Instacart, I'm guilty of DoorDash, I'm guilty of just not really wanting to get up and defrost something and actually cook it, right? But I
Yeah.
think that all that's kind of the message on a lot of things, right? Like how we've dumbed down our education and how we've dumbed down handwriting. Like, I mean, I make my players once a month handwrite a 1 page paper, and I mean,
Hmm.
it's oof, you guys don't even work on chip. So, like, I am to the belief that I expect to see what I'm seeing on the news based on what I get when somebody turns in a piece of paper. And these are actually really good kids, right? Like they have good upbringings and good house lives and so on and such, and they're doing something for themselves. But I can totally see how when somebody is just kind of given up on the overall American quote unquote dream, and this is now their reality. And I think more people choose crime because they don't know how to think um, outside of the box to start up a business or get an LLC, something constructive within the community, and then go ahead.
Yeah, because they don't know. I think a lot of people don't recognize what they're good at, and that's why it is helpful to have mentors or people in their
Yeah,
life to point those things out to them. And the thing is, a lot of these violent crimes that are rising are younger kids that are doing these crimes because they
that
don't have anything to do.
that article you sent me with DC was astonishing. Just 8, 9, 10, and 11 year olds having 6, 7, 8 priors at that age. Like I'm at
Yeah.
8 years old concerned about what kind of baseball card and when can I go outside and play wiffle ball, or football or basketball.
But that just
So
shows where we are in society. Like we don't, I mean, we don't know what people, because I would say we're working class people. I mean, I can speak for myself. We're working class people. And so a lot of those, we don't know exactly what people that are living in poverty have to go through and what they need to do to provide for their families. So if they can make a couple $100s a day, I mean, robbing people or breaking into retail shops where they're not going to necessarily get, if they're first offenders, they won't get, such hard sentences, but it's just, it's just, I don't know. But again, and that was what I was going to say. Kids, they make mistakes. Young men make mistakes. Young women make
I think
mistakes.
I think a lot of people make mistakes, but at the end of the day, like, so now I'm gonna flip it on you. I mean, how do you feel? How did that make you feel when you walked outside and your car had been bipped? Right? You're and you where's my stuff? Like there's a feeling of violation, there's a feeling of emptiness, there's a feeling of I worked really hard for this vehicle, the insurance, the car payment, the things that go along with, maintaining my car, the oil changes, the tune ups, the I had to get 10, I had to get beat, whatever it was, right? Like there was a
Yeah,
sense of what is when you walked out and saw that. And
yeah,
that's unfair to you as a human being because you are doing everything correct. So you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing that was told to you to do, right? Like this is the route to not necessarily happiness. I don't want to say happiness. I just want to say living a more comfortable life. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah, and that's why we have to care about other people. Like we
Mhm.
have to care about what other people go through because if we take care of the root problems, we may not have so much crime. Because right now, like it's chaos. Like
But
we are
yes,
suffering from the symptoms.
don't you think that that's more of the message propaganda wise? Is it's one for all for one. I saw it this weekend, right? Like I saw three different variances of what I'm witnessing when I'm coaching. It's all about the coach and his ego. It's all about the players and their ego. And then those two egos are fueled into the stands with their supporters and the parents and those egos. Right. And so now we're just living in this kind of false bravado, egotistical society that like materialism or the materials that I'm obtaining, whether I've gotten them legitimately or if I've stolen them or if they're even fake, put me on a status with whomever I'm associated with or I want to be associated with. That's what brings me joy or happiness, or that's what keeps me inside the room or even opens the door to that room. Right. And, when did it get this bad? That's what I would love to find
Um,
out.
I think it got this bad just over time, and people miss. I mean,
Because we live in the
no,
most.
people don't feel cared about. Like that's what I think. I feel like people don't feel that they're out here alone. There's nobody here to help them. Nobody cares anymore. And that's what I see. That's what I
Yeah.
see. That's what I feel.
So let me ask you this. I think this is a good transition to what we're even talking about in hindsight of how we grew up, right? How did you ever feel about commercials, right? Like old school political commercials. Let's go back to the mid 90s when we were in high school and we were kind of like on the cusp of having to vote, right? And I
The
remember a
Say
movie.
No to Drugs
Yeah,
campaigns.
yeah, the slogans, the red ribbon weeks, those types of, false fucking shit we know now to be right. And we are the freaking war on drugs, right? Like if you've done your work and your research, that can be another topic, by the way, Tuesday. So, uh,
Yeah.
but I think that how did those things make you feel? I guess that was me with me be asking you that question. Like when you saw a campaign or when you saw Bill Clinton running for president and he's surrounded by a bunch of black people in Alabama or Arkansas where he's from, in Little Rock or whatever it may be. Like how did that make you feel when you would see, the mayor, kind of fakely going out to a basketball game, at Peace Street Park or whatever it may be? How did those things
I
they
I
ever resonate with you, or do you just kind of
honestly didn't understand at that age because I didn't really get into politics until like really heavily until Obama.
Mhm.
But my family has always been a political family, so I've grown up hearing different sides of politics. But those like I remember the commercial with the egg and this is your brain on drugs. It was kind of funny. It was
Mhm.
humorous. So those they just were commercials. It was like entertainment. I just didn't understand it.
You think of that is I can tell you on the flip side, like I valued those things.
Mm.
And so like I don't want to be the flunky. I didn't want to be the drug head or the person that was relying on substances or relying on someone else based on how I was being raised in my house on top of what I was consuming inside and or outside the house, right? And so I think with what we're seeing is that you're seeing a microcosm of kids having to start school earlier because of the socioeconomical status in California, right? So California is probably the most heavily scrutinized state because of who we have in office. The American dream seems to be on one or two coasts, right? Here in California or in New York. Like if you can make it in these two places, then you're kind of deemed successful all across the country. And I see it when I travel. When people are like,
Mhm.
"Where are you from?" Sacramento. Oh, the capital. what do you do? Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a business, or I'm doing this, and I coach baseball. And like, well, you do that full time. It's like, yeah, I do it full time. Like, I don't have to make a means doing anything else other than what my passion is. But I've always been to the belief, and I think Jay-Z's really good about stating this. I don't know how but much belief he has in it, but when he says it, when I'm hearing him on interviews, well, there's genius in everyone. And I do take note on that, right? I think that there is genius in everyone, and there is a level of care that you do have to have for one another as a human race. And if you're a person of God, in my case in point and yours, like, we do love thy neighbor, and we do value that moralistic code. I think a lot of morals are out of the window right now, and I think because the moralistic part of the world is out of the window right now, and it's kind of on a stranded, deserted island, this is what you're getting.
Yeah, people don't know right and wrong anymore. Like,
No,
and how are you getting that? Like, if you don't have a faith, like at this point, if you don't believe in Jesus, the teachings of Jesus, teachings of Christ, like just get any kind of faith to me, because they still have the same principles of, where you'll have a guide, like if you're Islam faith or even Buddhist, it's all about just positive. It's more positive, and it teaches you right from wrong. And I just think that's what's lacking, like
have you ever
a higher
that
power.
found it funny that some of these movies that were glorifying crime, right? Let's go back in time with
Uh-huh.
movies like New York City and The God,
Godfather.
right? Like, everything that was structured in those organizations, those crime families or these crime movies, they all had very biblical senses of community, right? Just or fellowship within their group, right? It's you're my brother's keeper, or am I my,
Loyalty.
right? Okay, so why isn't that extended out to the next man? Why do I have to take from another man just because he has something I want to obtain? Right. And I just think that it's a lot. There's a lot having to do with males being in the picture and not being in the picture in certain impoverished areas in California and across the country. Um, I think that the desensitization of the male has really dumbed some things down, the demasculation of the male in that regard. And that's not me being a sexist pig or anything like that, because I believe in a lot of things that women do fight for equality and those types of factors. But I also am to the belief that, you know, having a male in your life, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a father, whether it's an uncle, who has taken some sort of loving or liking to you, really does help perpetuate those inner teachings that a woman can provide.
Yes.
And
Like, ooh,
just
we
think
need
that.
men to stand up.
Mhm.
We need men to stand up and to stand in those positions. Because I was talking to one of my friends. He's a correctional officer in Los Angeles, and he's a basketball coach. And he was saying that as he works with different young men, or just even with his own family or his daughters, like if he just steps into the room, they just listen more than to the mother.
They do, they do, and I think that there's something to be said with,
It's that presence. It's just that masculine
uh,
energy or
what are
whatever.
we, what are we, what are we consuming that has dumbed that down, right? Like, I know that I can stop a fight just by raising my voice. I know that I can interject something and or start something if I have bad body language or a certain tone in my voice, right? I can step into a bank and I'm just trying to cash a check. And if I change my or alter my demeanor or my voice, I can literally start some shit right in that place. So when you have those things, or you understand your power, I mean, what are we doing with our power? Right. And how are we operating to teach these young men and women that you are very powerful, but there is a right and a wrong way to go about your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because honestly, like, there's nothing worse for me, at least, is I've worked this hard to get this, and I come outside and it's been tarnished. Like, by
Mhm.
not but not by anybody else, but by somebody else who literally just felt some type of way that day has the ability to fuck up my shit. Like, that's not. I mean, I know life's not fair, but this is just kind of the harsh realities we're really living with right now in these times.
Yeah,
And it's
like, yeah, there's really, I mean, like I said, at this point, because okay,
mhm.
there's different policies that, different viewpoints. I'll say the Republicans' viewpoint is for what's happening right now, for that situation, like somebody messing up your stuff, um, they can be arrested and then send them to prison in very inhumane conditions. Like that's pretty much what the Republicans want to do right now. If you're caught doing a crime, any type of crime, then you should go to jail for years, and then that will end crime. Or you have the Democrat stance right now, or their policies show where you try to get to the root of the problem. To change society, you try to implement different programs to rebuild the person's character. And that's all that's how the policies go. But right now, I think most people are leaning towards more Republican policies because for that experience of you getting your stuff stolen, a business getting their stuff stolen, you want it to be over with. You want this to be done with quickly. And I think the Democratic policies approach is a more long-term process to try to reshape people's minds and heart. So I don't know. It sucks, but
Well,
I think people are going to have to be criminalized.
in a sense where I think at the end of the day, um, you have these democratic, beliefs, and I think that they have a more longevity process driven style, right? And hopefully we can change the masses on certain things. And like I said, I don't try to pay too much attention to either party. Like I really, for me, I've always been ground level, like what's going on in my city, what's going on in my county, what kind of rules, regulations are being, put out for us to vote on, to help save certain things or measures, and where our money's going inside the school systems and things like that, those different types of policies, procedures that do take place. I just think like the old way of thinking is just not a way we can think anymore. So whether whatever side you're on, there has to be some sort of letter of the law that's, hey, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is what was voted on, this is what didn't get voted on, and we have to move accordingly.
Right.
And I just think that there's a fine line because there's so many different things and so many different ways that people handle crime and handle um being the victim, being the prosecutor, being the officer, being the violent crime right, like being the person that did the crime. I'm just interested to see maybe a documentary or some sort on all that, like let's take all 4 or 5 different sides and figure it out from a legislation standpoint. Or um
Yeah.
your boy Barrio has a documentary on Max, where he goes into the lives of normal people. I think it's like a 4-part series or something like that. And I was trying to watch it. It was a little hard because it was kind of some more of a fluff piece than it was more investigative or more research driven. But you're seeing these people like they'd rather DoorDash than go to school. So what the hell is that about, right? Like, because from somebody like me and my family, like education's everything. So getting your secondary education was everything. Like you have to go to college. Like that was a staple in our home. You either
But
go to
people
college.
don't want to do that anymore. A lot of kids don't want to do that. And I don't think it's healthy because you have to have some type of structure in your life. If you choose not to go to college, then you should get a trade or you should go into the military or, just something or start your own business, something that well, I don't know if I'd recommend that right out of
Yeah.
college. But just something that gives you that structure, because otherwise kids are just sitting in the house smoking, drinking, getting into drugs, hanging with bad influences and not doing anything. And that's the problem. You can't make money sitting in the house and being lazy. There's like no way to do that unless you do the influencer route, but that takes a lot of work and you don't
And
it
I think that it's so. Let's go into this then. I mean, I think crime, in a sense, is equated to fame, right? Like, and getting rich quick schemes, right? And having the easy way or easy term out, right? Like, that's the scary part about the world we live in right now is that you can go viral like your girl this morning. I woke up and went on Twitter after I did all my morning routine stuff, and the girl who took the internet by storm last year, Bobby, I don't know her last name, Altef or something like that, who had the
oh
Drake. Um, I don't know if that's her real body or not. You know what I mean? But like having that leaked onto the internet, whether it's AI or not, like that, we're in some scary times.
yeah. No,
It's
we
like
are.
this is real
And
not, and can she know that this is her for real? Right? Right?
oh,
She
I haven't even seen that today.
oh, nuts. And then the first thing I woke up to, it's like, what the
Oh
hell?
Lord. Yeah. And that's the thing. We're all being fed a different narrative depending on what our algorithm is, what we are interested in. That's what we're seeing more of. So yeah, I mean, I didn't get that. So everybody gets different information, and whatever bubble you're in is the information that you're getting in that bubble. So you have to really like go into you have to seek out information in this day and age.
It says it
And
in the seek him first, right? And then everything else in the kingdom of his passage in paradise is going to be okay. But at the end of the,
preach.
I just think at the end of the day, like we're in such scary times, and I really don't have. It's like I normally would have a solution for certain things, right? Because I'm more process driven and solution driven, and
Me
that's how
too.
life. And I think you've known that for years about me. It's like I'm just a go getter, and I want to solve the problem. So I don't deflect anything. So I don't like standing bullshit. I don't do the back and forth gray areas. It's like, let's talk, let's be transparent, let's get this shit out in the open. You don't like it, it's fine, but I'm gonna have conflict resolution on my end because I know I'm gonna sleep at night. Like
Yeah.
I just and it's tough because I want to trust people, right? Like I would love to trust people with certain things. I would love to be able to trust my laptop at Starbucks being open without it being gone when I come out of the bathroom. I would like to not have to
That's a
lock
lick.
or it is a lick. That's what I'm saying though. It's like, but when did we get so far outside of just common decency and common courtesy for one another as a people? Right? Like, what is it that's strong arming us in California? And I just believe it's a money thing. I believe it's a social caste system type deal that has gotten so far out of hand because you're either rich, you're middle, or you're extremely poor. And
Yeah.
even is becoming poor.
And they've been forecasting this for several
Year,
years that
year,
they're
year.
getting rid of the middle class
Oh,
and
for
it's
sure.
going to be haves and have-nots.
Soon as the
All the
boomers out, as soon as the boomers were no longer booming, that was the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was our last generation of real, like, of values, traditional values. And
Well, it was
um,
more biblical, right? It was more to a sense of it didn't matter what religion you practiced or believed in. Um, and I felt like once we went to war for religion, which is totally against what our constitution states and different things of that nature too, and where we are stereotyping other races, other religions, other creeds of human people. I think that that's where the center divide has come from, right? And there's a divide. There's a divide with my brothers and I, black men, right? Like there's a divide there. It's very, very rare unless it's a gentleman of my age or older that is going to nod their head and give me the international black man head nod. These
mm,
young guys, I see them at the gym. I very rarely, I'll say what's up if I can kind of get a sense that they're cool, right? Or that they have a good head on the shoulder. But if they're out there and it's very stereotypical of what I see, I stray away from it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
don't
that could cause a issue, you know? People
I
might
don't
take that wrong.
yeah, I'm just saying what's up. I
Yeah,
could go, and that can mean for them, I wanna fight. I
yeah,
don't I didn't grow up that way. I
right,
didn't
right.
up to being that person.
Yeah, and the other thing with all this, I mean, that we haven't discussed at all was, the mental health crisis that we're experiencing in the nation. Like I saw a stat that there's something like 1 in 4 people are suffering from some kind of mental illness. And I mean, think about it. What we've lived through with the pandemic, like that's once in the century type of stuff. Like that just doesn't happen in
We've
modern times.
we've had like 4 major key things since 2001.
Right. And we're supposed to just survive and keep going. And a lot of people don't invest in that time of, seeking God or, working on self and praying and meditating and reading and just pouring good things into ourselves. So if nobody of a majority of the world is not doing that, trying to heal from PTSD, trauma, whatever, I mean, you're not able to make good decisions, good rational decisions, because they were also saying that a lot of this criminal behavior can also be biological, or it has a lot with the development of your frontal lobe. Like you just don't have the capabilities to make rational decisions, to
Well,
make
how
good decisions.
rational decisions when you've never been taught what is rational and what's not? How do you know what common sense is when you don't have any blueprint of common sense in your actual life? If all your life is when you get home is your mom or your dad yelling, screaming, being at each other's throats, why isn't this done? Why isn't that done? Why isn't that bill paid? Why isn't this paid? Don't you think you're living a life of chaos from an early onset age? So you
Yeah.
have kind of onset fucking child adulthood. Like a lot of kids are living adulthood at 12, 13, 14 years old, having to work, having to provide for their families, having to do things that are out of the overall social norms that we've always been kind of accustomed to, right? Like it's no longer the Leave It to Beaver era. It's no longer even the Huxtables and the Martins and the Living Singles era. Like it's really like
It's dysfunction.
it's very much dysfunctional.
Just look at our families, look at our friends' families, look at it's dysfunction everywhere. And so you think your situation is bad, and then you just talk to somebody else and you hear about their situation, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know?
not even close to that spectrum yet. But here's the sad part is that you have all these things that are dysfunctional. And just like you said, like what can you or I do? And I feel like I do my part in a lot of ways on a daily
You
basis. I
do.
do
You
my
do.
part.
You
Like
do.
so like I'm able to feel a different type of way about how things can happen. But like I know I can't reach the overall masses, right? Like and I can't be the savior on certain things. And I can't also always be the spokesperson on certain things either because there's always going to be somebody throwing rocks at the throne. And I'm not saying I'm on a throne of coaching or anything like that. I'm just saying it's metaphorically speaking, like somebody's always going to have an opinion or chastise what you're doing either in a positive and or a negative space, right?
When
Whether
you're in a
it's
position of leadership, you're in a position of leadership.
yeah,
That's the
and so
throne.
always subject to opinion, not necessarily fact. And so what I did was when you told me about this subject, I actually it's funny because obviously my algorithm heard us, and so and my buddy, I'll give him props on this because I hope he ends up watching this. He will because it's one of my closest dudes, and we talk about everything outside of sports. Like he's more of my go to about politics and about reform, and because he's actually with his job, he's very entrenched in the Sacramento community as well, and I wish, more people could actually hear how eloquently he can speak and how motivating he is to just be an uplifting, black man in today's world is my buddy EJ. And he always sends me stuff about what's going on in the Bay and then and how it's kind of, it seems like it starts in the Bay Area and it trickles into Sacramento,
Yeah.
and then you're starting to see it more and it's like, oh shit, man. Like, I don't
Because people
want
are
this.
migrating. Yeah, people are migrating here. They're it started, people left San Francisco. So the people left San Francisco, had to go to the East Bay, people from the East Bay. Like it was displacement. A lot of people are being displaced. And so now a lot of people from the Bay Area are moving to Sacramento
Mhm.
or to Stockton or to Modesto or Manteca, the little Tracy, those surrounding areas, because the cost of living is better. But it's kind of like, I don't know, is it designed? But that could be another topic. It's a whole nother
It
topic.
I mean, and that's we all know that that's gentrifying, and
Yeah.
it's capitalistic gentrification for sure.
But okay, gentrification is terrible if you don't keep the culture or the spirit of that neighborhood. But if your neighborhood is completely run down and you don't take care of your neighborhood and you just allow, just throw your trash outside for somebody else to pick up, or if if there is a lot of crime in your neighborhood, then you're bringing your property value down
I think they're putting these people in those positions.
so that
That
they could come in, buy it,
Yeah.
and then
It,
cash out basically.
it's a song old as time, man. Like that's just how the rich get richer. Is they poor people and people that don't have an education on certain topics and subjects are going to be the first to be exposed. And I know that from sales. Like I can sell anything. You can give me a product, I can study, research it, and figure out a way with my vocabulary, with my vernacular, the way I am, how charismatic I can be and excitement and bring you something. I could sell you something in a bill of goods. Now, if I take away multitude of things that create happiness in your household and in your life that enriches your life, and I'm taking those away, right? That enragement becomes a furnace, and that furnace is becoming hotter and hotter and hotter. And thus, you coop us up for 6 to 8 months here in California. You make every job non-essential unless you have a badge, you know, of some sort, right? Like a badge of some sort, or you're a product and a good and a service, right? That matters. They didn't even deem baseball essential, right? Like, really? Like, I think this is really essential for a young 13 to 16, 17-year-old, even 8 through 18 or older,
And the
right? Like
arts, how they
I
got rid
door
of all the arts.
I took 3 different fines in 8 months from the city of Sacramento in the sheriff's department because there was no way I was not going to not be open, right? And so like when you start taking these little things away, that furnace burns a lot hotter and you become very numb to law and order. Does that make
Kind of
sense?
like, you remember, yeah, no, you remember, I have to find it, but Tupac, when he was like, "Oh, we're coming, we'll ask and we'll knock," and then I can't remember exactly how it goes, but I'll have to find that. Maybe I'll insert it right here.
If I know that in this hotel room they have food every day, and I'm knocking on the door every day to eat, and they open the door, let me see the party, let me see like them throwing salami all over just like throwing food around. But they're telling me there's no food in here. You know what I'm saying? Every day. I'm standing outside trying to sing my way in. You know what I'm saying? We are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. After about a week, that song is going to change to we hungry, we need some food. After 2-3 weeks, it's like, give me all the food, breaking out the door. And after a year, you just like, you know what I'm saying? I'm picking the lock, coming through the door, blasting, you know what I'm saying? It's like you hungry, you reached your level, you don't want any more. We asked 10 years ago. We was asking with the Panthers. We was asking with them, with civil rights movement. We was asking, now those people that were asking, they're all dead and in jail. So now what do you think we're gonna do? Ask?
But people get tired of asking and waiting for people to come and take care of their neighborhood.
It was to keep feeding you stupid shit, stimulus checks, stupid shit, like feeding you things that will take you off of what the long term goal of these things are, and temporarily give you gratitude, temporarily give you some feeling of notoriety or want, right? Like it's all kind of sad in a way. And
No, it's extremely sad because there really isn't much you can do for the state of the world, especially if you come from like a spiritual standpoint. and you know the fate of society, like prophetically,
Yeah.
it's supposed to go to ruin, and then Jesus comes and redeems the earth and puts it back in order to his original blueprint. And if you're in a monotheistic faith, like you believe that's going to happen,
Mhm.
and like so, there's really
Scary on all fronts, because if like I take the book that literally, just how you eloquently put it, which I appreciate, because not many people can do that, whether they know the book or not, or different things of that nature. But like, if I look at it and see it the same way you do, because I do have that same belief, being God-fearing Christian, right? And that's scary to me, because I've created life in this world. So like, for me, it's like that's always the unknown. Is like, I'm more concerned about their well-being than I am even sometimes mine, right? And I know that that sounds cliche, but that's the God honest truth,
yeah.
right? Is I care more about what's going to happen to my children and maybe their children in that sense and point. And people are just kind of fucking that off, if I
Right.
can say, and
But
it's
that's
irritating.
that's where the faith without works comes into play. We know this is going to happen, but while we're here, like practically, we need to start caring about people and we need to put in the work long term so that we don't have to live in a society that has no law and order, that's just chaotic, you know. But knowing that it's going to happen, I don't know, but we're here, so we still have to work and we still have to do something to try to make it better.
Now, let me ask you, you think like we're almost too smart for our own good in certain ways? Because like, from a criminalistic standpoint or a mindset, like I always, like, I'm not a big like 48 or Law and Order SVU, and I'm not big on those types of shows, or
I don't watch those either.
things like that. But when I have watched them and things like that, it's like, I've always looked at it like, something's obviously off with this person to make them feel this type of way, or this type of anger or angst towards the system. And I get it. Like, if this system is not helping you, then how do you feel like you should even be involved?
Abiding by the rules. Yeah,
Yeah.
why are you going to abide by the rules? That's basically where we're at right now. Is
Hmm.
people aren't abiding. We're living in a lawless time.
Hmm.
Sodom Gomorrah, like it's back.
Isn't it crazy though? Because like, I mean, this is a whole nother thing. It's like, what do policemen come from? Like, what's their origin? Like, a lot of people don't know that origin story, and a lot of people
Oh,
don't know that
the
of our
overseer.
overseers of plantations and runaway slaves and different things of that nature. So like, I get it.
Some police officers.
Huh?
Well, I mean, the idea of how law enforcement started is definitely from that origination. But I think as time progressed, there are people who wanted to be a part of law enforcement for the right reasons.
Oh, for sure. I'm not calling out anybody in law enforcement on it. I'm just more speaking to which the origin of it is, right? And so if you understand anything originally, right? Like baseball, for instance, I can give you it's a gentleman's game and a gentleman's,
Mm,
like, it
and didn't
wasn't
let us
for
in.
women, it wasn't for blacks. It was just, this is what it looked like cricket and bowling at the same thing, right? And then it spawns into this, right? So like, everything has a maturation, everything has an evolution to it. I think it's more prevalent now, and crime is more prevalent because people get off on being seen. That's another thing. People really do get off on being seen and having clicks. Like, you don't think these young kids that are doing all this shit see their work? They know that they bipped that car. They knew that they stole that stuff, and then now it's being virally shared by 50.5 thousand people in less than 24 hours. And people get off on that stuff. I mean, it's just like why people gamble, why people drink, why people do drugs. Like, it's the high of it, right? And
That
it's the
dopamine release,
Yeah,
you know.
and I think the way that the world has worked so far is, especially with this younger society, I would say 25 and under, they've definitely been raised on technology, and I see it with my kids all the time. I used to call water breaks commercial breaks, because they needed a commercial break after 10, 15 minutes of doing a drill. And it's
Mhm.
crazy because like there's just their lack of intent and lack of focus. And it's like, okay, once they're hyper focused, and I see it with my son, my oldest, who's was diagnosed with ADHD at 9 years old, and we did a lot of mind center things. So I learned a lot being at UC Davis and dealing with that, and then with when we eventually moved to Kaiser in the program when he became a teenager and into his high school years, and just seeing the fixation that he has with his ADHD, like a mild level of spectrum, but like where he gets so linear focused on one particular thing. I think a lot of people struggle with just that, and they don't have the ability to multitask. They don't have the ability to have two to three, even four different thoughts within a day without it being one thought or one train of mind being consumed. And that's the consumption that they're taking in on TV,
Mm.
music, through the videos, through porn, through anything like that they are taking on and starting to live kind of like that Demolition Man movie with Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone. They are taking on this whole entire persona that is being fed to them on a device or live streamed.
Yeah, we're starting to find out the effects of the internet and this whole generation. Like, and then that's still unraveling, I believe, because it's new. It's fairly new if you think about it. But we're now seeing the consequences,
Yeah,
if you ask
yeah.
me.
Hmm. Oh yeah, big time.
For sure. It's too much. It's too much. Man, we could keep going, but I want to try to keep these as short as possible or as
Yeah,
concise as possible. We'll definitely probably have to do part 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 with this topic because it's an ongoing issue in our society, and hopefully in a few years, if everybody joins in, comes together, takes care of their community, like, because you can't take care of the whole world. We just can't do that. But I think if enough people step up and care and do things that you like, that you're doing, that's going to help our community, we could probably see, not as many, or we'll bring the crime rates down
you can definitely see change, but I think with change has to come. There's got to be change,
consistently.
and there's no consistency at the top yet. So you know, I gotta
Yeah,
pray for today.
yeah, because even with, these kids, like the Democratic policy is their idea is you don't want to put a kid who makes a mistake in jail for long term because they're already trying to survive. They're already upset. You put them in jail for 10 years, you think they're really going to come out happy? And especially when you're in the prison system, like I was talking to somebody, they have programs to help rehabilitate people, but the people there are some of them are there to just collect a paycheck, collect a pension, 401(k), and move on without really taking an interest in rebuilding these people's
I think
lives.
it
So
too.
jail isn't the answer. That's all I'm saying. Prison is not
I,
the answer.
part two of this, what would be really good to see is because a lot of people don't understand Sacramento's cultural dynamic. It's so diverse. One, and then the overall dynamic between the socioeconomical status of we have a lot of state and federal workers here. So a lot of people don't realize like our economy is structured on people getting paid one time a month, right? There's a lot of households that only get income one time a month, and then now they have 30 to 28 to 31 days to decide how to appropriate what they're working for, right? And what you're working up to. So like Sacramento's no longer just a Sac State being a commuter school. Most families and most things are being started because kids are now going to Sac State or going to surrounding area schools and things like that. William Jessup, UOP, UC Davis, schools within a 40 to 50-mile radius of Sacramento, making their homes in Sacramento, outlying areas. Sacramento is very predicated and built just like Phoenix is, where
Mm,
everything kind of connected to Phoenix.
mm.
And Sacramento is that hub. And I'm just interested to see the numbers of, those kind of families, what kind of structure overall, like we're getting from our census and things like that. And just the overall culture at which a lot of people are entrenched in the community and it's just still not getting through to people. So that's the scary part.
Yeah, like we have to. Like at this point, you're going to be a victim of some type of violent crime if we don't start caring. Like
Yeah.
it's simple as that.
Yeah.
Simple as
Great.
that.
It's a great topic. I appreciate it. Hopefully I didn't, overspeak or anything crazy like that. I just,
It's
I
real. These are real thoughts.
yeah, they're real thoughts. I'm more, I'm kind of glad my kids aren't young. I'm glad they're
Yeah,
older
I
because
know.
I can these more reality conversations with them, and they still have a lot of growth to do and where they want to lay their seeds and their bricks down, in order to foundationally build their families and their structure and within their lives, because they're both still just in school and playing sports. But it's coming to a halt soon, right? Like they're going to be done with school. They might be done with sports. Hopefully, the boy gets drafted and things like that. But I don't see a stop or an end to it, Stace. Like I get nervous about that, and I'm more nervous for the kids that I have in my program that are of 10 through 15, right? Like because they just don't know what to gravitate to. I think a lot of them struggle with wanting to be, the class clown and have, a shit ton of followers as opposed to just being a good young man.
Right.
Yeah.
Or being a rapper.
Yeah. Well, I bet a couple terrible mixtapes, but it's all good.
Oh, exactly. Like, I don't know. We have to, I can't reiterate this enough,
Mhm.
but we have to care. Like we have to. We
Yeah.
have to do more. Even
Yeah.
if it's as simple as just saying, "Hey, young man, you looking good," or "Hey, young girl, woman, like young lady, you're like,
You gotta be
you're doing."
careful though, because man, dude, like even going out a year ago or so, that's probably the last time I really went out. I mean, saying thanks, darling, like being a gentleman
Oh, that's
got me
true.
with the damn bartender. So it's like, I mean, there's just so many other things that we have to like. I just feel like we're just in such a mess,
No, it
over
is. It's like this.
with
You peel one problem away, then there's another, and then there's another, and then there's another. But
and
it's
they
all connected.
I felt like they're all connected in a sense where they were all designed to deviate from the initial understanding of what the master plan was. And so if you get a little bit too close to the fire, you're going to end up getting something's going to happen to you because you're starting to unlock all these truths, right? So that could be another good topic. A lot of these conspiracy theories have come true, and a lot of them haven't. So it's just I don't believe this to be a conspiracy theory. I believe this to be a very ground level issue with crime and things like that, especially like with owning brick and mortar and having a business, having things in there that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, to have that even
Public
be messed
safety.
with.
Yeah.
hmm To have my kids that are, not in the best of areas where they are working out for the greater good of themselves, right? And for the teammates that they are working with, like to not feel safe in that environment sucks. That sucks.
I know.
Especially at
Yeah. But
I know
that's the issue.
as
Public
a
safety.
I never did not feel safe at school.
I
Like
know.
I worry about these kids because I don't think they feel safe at school.
We had fire drills and earthquake drills. Now they're having I don't know what they call them.
Active shooter drills.
Active shooter drills. This is
Crazy.
this is what we're living through.
Yeah.
So,
It's nuts. So
yeah.
that was good. And it's all love from on this side, and
Yep.
you know,
Well,
keep hitting on the heart. That's the only way you get better, is by opening up the topics and
putting it in
hope.
people's awareness. People aren't aware of what's happening,
Oh, for
and
well, it's easy to turn a blind eye, especially those that have a little bit more affluency within their lives, right? Like I know that to be true in mine. When heavily being affluent with whether it's money or whether it's a little bit of time, whether it's a little bit of leisure, whether it's just being entrenched in my job, like I tend to not worry about the outside world as much. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
and that's the back of trying to reach the ladder of success too. That's the drawback because you're taught not to, and it goes back to the defiant ones, right? When Jimmy Iovine does speak to, we're like racehorses. We have blinders. We don't pay attention to who's on our left or our right. We're worried about our goal and our commonality. So there's a lot of different innuendos you can take from that quote.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like affluent people, everybody, we have to pay attention now. We have to take the blinders off and see. Otherwise, you're gonna get hit in the head with a crowbar. Like
Yeah,
simple as that.
you'll, you'll be running the race and get fast. So
Get shot. They'll steal your shoes. They'll steal your blinders. Who
Crazy.
knows? So like it's like well in Oakland they're debating if they call a state of emergency, you know.
They're about
And
to get late on
but
that.
that's where it is. They need to declare it because it's terrible. But did you know, I didn't know this, that Alaska is the most dangerous state. Alaska.
Yeah. You've never seen the Alaskan Gangster show on Real TV?
No, I didn't get into it, but I mean I haven't I just heard this stat and I'm just like, wow.
I felt like
How?
I felt like I was in 1992 when HBO came out with Banging in Little Rock. That's what it looked
Oh.
like.
Hmm.
It was that shit. I
But
mean,
then
and
again,
some areas are ass backwards to what
it's
we've
rural.
experienced because it is
Yeah,
rural.
there's
You got,
nothing there.
yeah, there's nothing there, and there's no sense of big city
Opportunity. Yeah.
involvement. You know, I always tell people like we're so lucky being in Northern California. We're entrenched with so much variety and culture and enrichment, like and enhancements, right? Like an hour and a half away, I can be on a snowboard and I can be going down the hill. An hour away, I could be sipping the best wine and the best
Napa.
champagne in the world. Another hour, another 30, 40 minutes, I could be eating the best, oysters on a half shell in Sausalito. Like we just have so many different escapes where we are located. And again, that's what makes us a bigger target because we have more.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, honestly, our cost of living is up. That's why we do have lots of
Yeah.
regulation and taxes. So there's a reason for all of these things. But after a pandemic, when so many people are losing their jobs, like people have to leave because they can't afford rent. So you have to go to the states that are more affordable,
Yeah.
not that they wanted
So
to.
that state and you're like this, you're always on like that. And that state's like, yeah, it's the rhythm and the beat is different. So your
Yeah.
this is why I've always taken a liking to understanding different people from different backgrounds, not necessarily like locations, just different backgrounds, right? Like that's always been my draw into, okay, this kid doesn't have a dad in the house. Okay, so how does he act compared to the kid that has a mom and a dad, or grandparents are raising this young man, brother and sister are raising this young man, and it's you see a big difference. You see a big
Mm.
in culture and in morality based on what's in the home. And
You
there's
know
not
what?
a lot of happy homes right now.
No, there's not. There's not. Because there were so many divorces out of the pandemic. Like the pandemic caused a lot of issues. But I would actually love to talk about what you just brought up because I wonder, like I always wonder this, because since it's a crisis in our community, like should it be a man in the home or is it more there should be stability, like of a family unit? Like
I
I want to get into that more.
yeah, I can answer that real quickly too, just without going too deep into it. I believe in stability. But stability with sentimental value of understanding like it doesn't just take a man and a woman. It doesn't just take a man. It doesn't just take a woman. It's just stability and being on the same page.
Mhm.
You know, and having a loving home, I think, is one of the more imperative things. It's like love is what's really missing in this world right now, and I hate that. This is a whole nother subject. I just hate that some of our big time stars, especially in the entertainment, hip hop, and clothing communities, have come under so much fire because of their extracurricular activities that some of their messages that are important, like Pharrell and your boy Diddy, things like that, who promote love, but
Live the opposite.
yeah, live the opposite direction. So
Yeah, that's definitely a
they're
show.
they're no more trustworthy than per se your boy Trump or Biden, right? And then they fall into that category. Even with me, I'm like, stay over there.
Yeah, but that's
I
what we
wish
see.
I campaign with you, bro, but like you're not living that life. So like, stop selling me fucking products. Stop selling me a bill of goods. And I think that that's what a lot of people are struggling with is they've consistently been sold something. We've been sold shit since we were out of the womb,
American
especially,
Dream.
you know. And so it's kind of scary. It's scary to see where it could potentially go and or where it's already gone. And is it going to ever be rendered? So,
And we will find out.
we will.
We will find out. Like, I don't want to stop this. Like, that's what I was just thinking. I'm like, oh, there's so much I want to talk about, but we'll
It's
have
a
to
lot.
revisit. We'll have to
Yeah,
revisit.
we'll be fine. We'll have more
Yeah.
productive things and stay on certain things. But at the end of the day, I think like with both of us kind of similarities, especially in homes and in beliefs and in moralities. And that's more or less as we get older, we're finding that we have a lot more similarities than we even knew about beforehand. Right. And so I think that that's kind of God's work in a way too. Like
Yeah.
as you, I feel like you're more intertwined with who you actually are and the people that you need to be surrounded with. So I just find more solace in that than I do kind of trying to be like the man, right? Like, but I know what I am within the
Yeah.
community and things like that. I just feel like it's such a hard job because there's so many different things that people nitpick and try to throw stones at that I don't like dealing with it some days and I do the others, it's just hard. It's a hard give and take. So,
Yeah. No,
but
that I was just thinking that's a good show too. Like, what is a man and like what is a woman? Not, just however we feel to society. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I think that would be a good show. That would be very interesting to explore. So, all right,
definitely.
you guys.
All right.
Thanks so much for listening.